Okay, we're good.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Tonight, we're trying something new. It's called a no quartet. We have no drums, we have no guitar, we have no violin, and probably we have no brains.
That's a fact.
Hey, kids, what time is it?
Time for Gezintahait, please. By the way, Bezalel.
Do we want to sing in here?
Yeah, but Bezalel, we do. I wonder if we can get some sound. There's smoke coming out of the amp over there. Maybe if we get it to go through like a paper plate holding a hole, it'll make a whistle or something. No? All right, let's just do it the normal way.
Let's do it.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah. The story for tonight is called A New Soul is Born. On Purim in the year 1745, the Baal Shem Tov taught that the Megillah calls the children of Israel Jews, Yehudim, as opposed to what they were called earlier, which was Hebrews. They were now called Jews. Why? Because they were willing to give up their lives rather than deny their Jewish heritage. The Baal Shem Tov went on to explain that that year, 5505, was a pregnant year, meaning there were 2 months of Adar, which, by the way, the coming year is a year with 2 months of Adar, a pregnant. Shortly after Purim, the Baal Shem Tov sent 2 Hasidim to visit Rabbi Baruch in Liazma and bless his wife Rivka, who was in her 4th month of pregnancy with the Alter Rebbe. I just want to add in that today was Chai Elul, the 18th of Elul, which was the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, who is the subject of the story, and the Alter Rebbe, who was in his mother in the 4th month of pregnancy when the story happened. A rabbi asks, what is the connection between the children of Israel being called Jews in the Megillah, a pregnant year, and the impending birth of the Alter Rebbe? Furthermore, how can we apply all these 3 to our service of Hashem? The teaching of the Arizal provides a connection to these 3 ideas. The Megillah states, these days will be commemorated and accomplished. The Arizal taught, when the days of Purim are commemorated properly by us, then the event will be experienced once more. If we commemorate it properly, we'll experience the original Purim. In other words, all the achievements of the first Purim can be re-experienced by commemorating the holiday properly. Realistically, our Rebbe says, a person knows his true standing. Even if he would properly commemorate those days, his experience cannot compare and much less replicate how Mordechai the Jew or Esther the queen experienced it. In fact, he cannot even experience Purim on the level of the Jews who lived through it. After all, they fasted for 3 days and nights. They saw 22,000 school children fasting and praying and learning Hashem's Torah, despite despite the threat of certain death. And through their self-sacrifice, all the incredible miracles of that first Purim occurred. So how is it possible, our Rebbe continues, that here in America, we have the power to experience those levels? The answer is, there's a big difference between accomplishing a challenge the first time and going through it after it has already happened. Every year on Pesach, we re-experience the going out of Egypt, going out of our spiritual constrictions. So too, the self-sacrifice of Mordechai and Esther, the 600,000 Jews and those 22,000 school children cleared the way for us to accomplish and experience the revelation of Purim today. As a result, we don't need the same level of self-sacrifice that they had. We only need to walk in the path they cleared for us with true devotion. And this is how the Purim story connects with the Alter Rebbe, who was born today on the 18th of Elul, whose soul had never inhabited the world. And this new soul descended to empower and enable human intellect to understand the inner teachings of Torah through the faculties of Chachma, Bina, and Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. The Alter Rebbe was able to teach us how to internalize godliness through our intellect. Up until the time of the Alter Rebbe, you had to be either a very lofty soul, or you had to do a whole bunch of stuff to purify yourself, roll around in the snow naked and fast a whole bunch. But the Alter Rebbe came and he gave us a way to internalize godliness through our intellect. And this required that the Alter Rebbe to bear the hardship of deprivation of prison with self-sacrifice. Consequently, the Heavenly Court ruled that in merit of his self-sacrifice, the Torah of Chassidus was established in the world. And with his self-sacrifice, the Alter Rebbe cleared the way so that we can follow the straight path that he prepared. Furthermore, by fulfilling every detail of the Torah with fear of heaven and practicing good character traits, all those who are tied to the Alter Rebbe, which is all of us, and go in his footsteps, will have the upper hand. When the new soul of the Alter Rebbe was going through the stages of development, the whole world was in an embryonic state. It was a pregnant year and needed to develop in order to receive that general soul. Just like the body has to develop in order to receive its particular soul for 9 months, so too the world had to develop to receive the soul of the Alter Rebbe. And this explains the Torah teaching delivered by the Baal Shem Tov on that Purim, why he noted that the year was a pregnant year and how it connected to the birth of the Alter Rebbe. And at that time, the world was in a state of pregnancy on 2 levels. One, the embryonic state of the new soul, which was needed to illuminate the world with the light of the inner teachings of Torah, the soul of the Alter Rebbe. 2, the world was in an embryonic state in preparation for receiving the revelation of that soul. And our Rebbe says that there are those who mistakenly think that it's not their job to teach Chassidus. They say, I have not perfected myself. And if I'm not ready, how much more a person who knows even less than me? Therefore, we say to him, you are not the first to tread this path. The way has been prepared for you. The way of the king of the world, the spreading out of the inner level of Torah. So if you know an aleph in the base. Gimel aleph, you know an aleph in the base?
Yeah, I know Aleph and I know base, and I am a Gimel.
And the Rebbe says, then if you know the aleph in the base, teach somebody else the aleph. So once I hear an aleph in the base, I want to share with you the aleph in the base song. First, we have the aleph song.
Yeah.
Aleph, 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 aleph. The right hand's up, the left hand's down, the body's in the middle. Aleph, aleph, aleph. Okay, and now the bass song. The bass and the bass, the bass and the bass. They both went shopping, and this is what they got. The bass got a dot, the bass got a dot, the bass got a dot, and the bass did not. So boys, you want to take it into a niggin? Or should we go into the learning?
Well, which nigga should we do? What nigga?
Well, we're talking about.
What's nigga?
In Yonim of bringing Mashiach, so we don't know.
Oh, Am Yisrael will have no fear, Moshiach will be here.
Oh, this is actually from the Baal Shem Tov. It's a nigga from the Baal Shem Tov whose birthday was.
Good idea. It's his birthday.
Yeah. Elio, Anobi, 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 Elio, Anobi. Elio, Atishbi, 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 Elio, Atishbi. Elio, Agilodi, 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 Elio, Hanovi, Elio, Atishbi, 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 Elio, Agilodi. That's the Baal Shem Tov tongue twister.
Nice one. Thank you. How do you know that?
Well, I was there, with Tzali.
Oh,
Yeah, I was there.
Can I get a witness?
I was a young man. I was only like 2,500 years old at the time with Tzali. And
You were middle-aged.
yeah, I was a young man. What do you mean? I'm middle-aged now, but Tzali.
Well, you have a long middle age.
Oh, maybe.
So last week, we went over what Chachma Bin and Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge is. And tonight, Gimel Elef wants to teach it to us in his inimitable way.
Yeah, in my inimitable, what's the inimitable way, yeah.
That cannot be imitated.
Oh, non-imitationable. Okay, well, what he said. Okay, let me find the thing. I'll share it with everybody too, so everybody can see it. Okay, so my dear friends, first we will explain the three dynamics of the intellect, of the seichel. They are called chachma, this means wisdom, bina, is a understanding, and das knowledge. Now, by the way, don't worry about what the English void means so much, because we're not so worried about what the English void means. We'll explain what each of these things are. So the Chachma, what's this wisdom thing? It's the light of the idea, right, or the intellectual concept, right, which is called the Seichel. In other words, the intellectual concept is called the Seichel. And the Chachma is the light, the idea, before it has letters and voids. So it's like just like a flash. It's the flash, it's not yet in letters and voids of explanation. Has Nathan, no voids. No voids. That is, we spell that W-O-oids.
An intuitive flash.
Yeah, an intuitive flash. Bina, understanding, is when this chachma, when this intuitive flash now becomes dressed in voids and letters. So now, without voids and letters, you can't, first of all, by the way, it's not just the voids and letters, you for sure can't explain to somebody else. You can't say, hey, look in my brain, ta-da, flash, doesn't work that way. You have to give voids and letters and explain it. And even to yourself, you really don't fully understand the flash of Chachma, the idea. You don't really understand until you have voids, until you thought about it a little bit, and you can dress it with voids and letters.
And when can you dress it in words and letters? When you've measured out the detail.
Yeah, the details.
When you've measured out the details in the idea, now you can describe it in words and letters.
Yeah. So this is Bina. Now, to understand this, we will use an example, a mashal, an allegory. So the wisdom, the chachma, is like when you see something very quickly, first glance, and you understand this object, you grasp it in your mind in a general way. So you can't describe it to another person in voids and letters because you haven't measured out in your own mind all of the details. So you can tell somebody, oh, I saw something beautiful, right? Like, for example, you see a building, a beautiful building. And this building, you see it, and right away, the first thing, you don't have to think about it. You can, let me think, is this beautiful? As soon as you see it, wow, wow-wee, right? And then somebody says, what was so beautiful about it? But you only saw it for a second, and you can't really explain because you didn't measure out all these things, right? So you know that it's beautiful, but you don't know the reason for it's beautiful. Like that it has all these, the perfect combinations of parts and colors, measurements, and because you didn't have time yet to measure out and distinguish these details. So you can't explain it to somebody else. You can say, I can't explain to you, it was beautiful, I can't explain it to you. But then he has a little bit of time and he can measure and distinguish all the details. Then he understands the reason for its beauty and he can explain to somebody else. Oh, I'll tell you why it was beautiful. It was a great, a large building, and it had wonderful, lots of rooms, and the way it sits in the landscaping makes it look like a precious jewel. And it had colorful tiles that was a beautiful artistry, and the windows and turrets and all kinds of beautiful things. And he can explain to somebody else because now he had the time to measure out the details himself. He can now dress this realization of this beauty of this building in voids and letters.
And that's called?
That's called Bina. Yeah, that's Bina. When he first sees the building, even though he realizes that he realizes right away, wow, it's beautiful, right? But it's higher than the explanation of why it's beautiful. So he's only experiencing it in general way, higher than the voids and the letters of the explanation. So he can't explain to somebody else why it's beautiful. All he can tell him is, I saw it and it's beautiful. I can't explain you why. The realization of the essence of the beauty when he first sees the building, this is Chachma. And right, this is the Eureka, the wow-wee moment. But understanding the reason why, it's not the essence of its beauty. It's not, because that's the why it's beautiful is not its beauty. It's just an explanation of its beauty. So, so it's not the essence, but it's only a garment, right? It's something that's a garment, like a clothing to the essence of the beauty, right? But the same way, also that the explanation of an idea is not the idea itself. You're using voids and letters to get somebody to understand about the idea. But the voids and letters, I really have, the letter Q has nothing to do with your idea. But at the same time, well, depending on the concept, but it might need a letter Q to explain the idea. And this is just like a clothing. So this why of the beauty, right, of understanding why the building is beautiful because understanding its details, is the garment for the essence of the beauty, which is the chachma, right? So the bina is a garment for the chachma. And it's just like the explanation of why the building is beautiful is a garment that communicates an understanding of the essence of the beauty in voids and letters, which illustrates bina. So the example of this building describes chachma and bina in the realm of this physical world of action, in a physical way.
You guys want to sing a niggun at this point, or do you want to continue this? This is a natural break here.
Which niggun we got?
As you know, my cousin, your Bali hosted like 2 weeks ago. And anyways, we were schmoozing. He recommended me something. So as far as the Shirpizmon.
Yeah.
Because I was also happened to be Makabel by Chabad in recent times.
Okay, start singing it.
Et yetzer
המבטא המרירה
מבלתך
אין מושיע להושיעני מבלתך אין מושיע להושיעני אל תשובה חי ותכלי תשובה חי ותכלי לקבל את נפש המתחרטה לקבל את נפש המתחרטה הנצורי שם הקולי עמני הנצורי שם הקולי עמני הודה לבשי אתה תסבוני הודה לבשי אתה תסבוני הודה לבשי You know, it's a great song also because it's a song about Tshuva. Of course, Elul is the month of Tshuva. And this is about, we're telling the Eibishter that Eibishter, only you can save me from this Yetzer Hara who's trying to seduce me and get me to do Averis. And only you can save me, Eibishter. And he asked the Eibishter to help us, and he helps us do Tshuva. He helps us to return to him. Anyways, Chevre, back to the program.
Why don't we do that real Labe's niggun, that real nice niggun about happy is the guy who never sins.
That one. No, not that one.
No, that was 2 weeks ago. For me.
Ashley Misha Ashrei. I'll just go leave.
Hit it, Labe. Ashrei.
What was
I was just starting.
my chopped liver? Was that like a...
What do you mean? It's a segue.
Ashrei Misha Lechoto. Ashrei Misha Lechoto. Misha Lechoto. Yoshu. In Choloi, Umishechoto, Yoshu, Oh, Yashrei, 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 Ashrei mi sheloichoto. Oh, Yashrei, 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 Ashrei mi sheloichoto. Mishachoto, Yashu, 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 in Choloi, Mishachoto, Yashu, 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 in Choloi. That's a great thing.
Definition of beautiful.
So next, my dear Tyre brothers and sisters.
So far we had Chachma and Bina in the world of action.
Yeah,
The beautiful.
like in physical things.
Now
we understand these two levels of Chachma and Bina. The way they relate to expressing an emotion. So meaning, with the same thing, just like if the measure out, like we said before, the measuring out. So in the intellect, there's also a measuring out of emotion, of how I should feel or act if faced with a certain situation. Now, note, this is not the actual emotion itself that we're talking about. We're talking about, for example, how should I act if a lion all of a sudden appears in front of me? And now, don't worry, I didn't freak out yet. We're just talking about the process of my brain telling me that it would be appropriate to freak out in 3, 2, 1. Ah! Yeah, so anyways. So measuring out intellect, how I should feel and act. Like, for example, should I be afraid or happy when I encounter this thing? Or is this thing kosher or not kosher? Or would there be an appropriate action if I encounter a certain situation? These examples are all in the realm of intellect. For example, the action may never happen. For example, you may be standing with your bayonet at the ready, and you're waiting for the charge of the enemy, and you're waiting, and your brain has already told you exactly what you need to do, and then they never charge. So the action never actually happens. But this is in your mind. So it's the seichel of the midas. This is the intellect of the emotions. They are not actual feelings. They're just a measuring out in an intellectual way what the emotional response should be. The emotion is called midas, feelings. While measuring out in the intellect, in the seichel, of what should be the proper feeling when encountering it, it's called the intellectual emotion, the midah of seichel. One expression of how emotions are measured out intellectually is in determining if something is allowed or not allowed in Jewish law. There's different things in Jewish law that you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and you have to determine, is this thing, for example, kosher? Right? So a thing which is allowed will be an expression of chesed, meaning kindness, as determined by the intellect. The intellect will say the appropriate thing is this is kosher, and something treif, something not kosher, is an expression of gevura, of strength, of judgment, as determined by the intellect. Like we see in Be'er, right? This is a tractate of the Talmud, right? Amud Vav, Daf Vav Amud Beis, right? In the case where Rav Kahn and Rav Ashi pointed out a contradiction of it, that was apparently a contradiction in Rav's ruling, right? About whether an egg in a chicken coop is allowed to be taken in on a Yom Tiv, because and he says no, you cannot take this on a Yom Tiv. And actually they objected against it. Why? Because they said, wait a second, but Rav, you alone said that a calf that the mother gets killed, like by a lion or something, or it's a not a good shechita, and the calf comes out, the calf is a kosher thing. So wait a second. So so you're saying that something that's new, when it's born, you're saying is considered to be, in that case, you were saying that's considered to be not something new, it's existing already. And in this case, you're saying that the egg is something new. What's going on here? This seems to be a contradiction. Now, here's what's interesting. Rav could not answer their contradiction, but he still upheld his position, and he still ruled against their opinion, and the halacha is what was like it. Now, the question is, wait a second, if he's wrong, so the answer is he wasn't wrong. It's just that he couldn't see it, he couldn't find the bina for it, he couldn't
explain it in words and
he
letters.
couldn't explain the voice and letters, but he saw in Chachma, the flash that he had, he knew he was right. Now, by the way, it just so happens that along came Rabbi Bar Nachmani, and Rabbi Bar Nachmani was able to explain it with a bina, with voids and letters. And by the way, the reason is because a chicken and a cow is two different animals. I mean that literally and figuratively. Why is they different? Because a cow that is in its mother's stomach, it's zeh muchan agav imei. It is ready, it is already a whole live being, even though it hasn't been born yet. We're talking about a calf that's already ready, like it's fully developed. And therefore, it can live on its own already. And therefore, it's not considered a new thing. It was already an existing entity by itself when it was still inside the mother. An egg, on the other hand, not so, because an egg which comes out on Yom Tov, it's a new entity because it's not like a calf, which is fully developed. Right, it's not fully developed inside. So this was Rabbi Bar Nachmani who explained why that the truth is that Rab was right. He really was right, and he explained why he was right. Because he had the bina that he was able to give an explanation for the chachma that Rab had.
In words and letters.
In voids and letters.
That's called bina.
Bina, yeah. So like we said before, that the reason expressed in a logical thought, called an explanation, is how the intellect, the seichel, is dressed into the letters of thought and speech, and this is called bina. So this is why chachma is called the exalted nothing, the ayin, compared to bina, which is a tangible explanation, because the chachma is the intuition, this intuitive flash is higher than letters and voids, and therefore it cannot be explained with thoughts of explanation because it's not too high for that. Even though chachma is called a nothing, because this intuitive flash it is.
Gimel Ellis, you get it why chachma is called a nothing?
Yeah, because you can't. It's just a flash.
It can't be tangibly.
You can't really. You can't really fully grasp it, and you can't explain it to somebody. So even though chachma is called nothing because it's intuitive flash, it is. However, that's only compared to bina, because really an idea is a thing. Compared to the bina, it's not a thing. It's just a flash. But however, compared to the level higher than it, it is a thing. Like
the
it
level
says,
from which chachma comes up.
Yeah, but it says chachma me'ayin timotzei, chachma comes out of the exalted knowledge. Therefore, it is an existence, obviously. Otherwise, why would you say it comes out of nothing if it itself is a nothing? And the answer is because compared to that, to below it, it's a nothing. But compared to above it, it's a something, and that thing above it is a nothing. And therefore, it's only compared to what's lower than it, it's considered nothing. Because compared to bina, it's not grasped at all. But compared to the thing that's higher than it, it's grasped. Whereas what's higher than the chachma is altogether not grasped. So now, so far, we have explained chachma and bina. Wisdom and understanding. The third part of the intellect is called knowledge, das. Das is not the level of pure seichel or the bina, the explanation. It is neither of these things.
Should we do a nigga in between? It's okay if you want to go on.
No, I think we should get to the end of this thought first.
Okay, fine.
Because I lose my thoughts in the middle quickly. So we want to make sure we get to a little period.
We don't want smoke coming out of your head.
Yeah, my head is not an amplifier, lady. We don't need smoke coming out of my head. So it's not either of these things, but rather it is the bonding and the mental unification with the seichel and its explanation. How does this bonding happen? Is by concentrating and focusing the mind on them. What's a good nigga?
So das is the focus of the mind on the Chachma and Bina. Is that
Yeah.
correct, Emmanuel?
That's correct.
Gonzalo, why do we talk so little about Das? It's like Das gets a back seat.
It's in the back of the brain.
So it's where it belongs.
That's probably why we talk so little about it.
No, who talks a little about it?
I mean, we talked a lot about the Chachma and Bina.
Up till now, but das is going to be the whole chronology of the development of the whole thing is going, every level is going to be through das.
Leib, what did the Chachma and Bina tell the Das on the road trip? Stop trying to be a backseat driver. No, Trevor, I'm thinking. Hey,
Okay.
So now, without further ado, the Das. So the third part, like we said, is Das, which is the focusing of the mind on the Chachma and Bina. It is itself, it is not a Chachma or a Bina. It is just a focusing of the Chachma and Bina. This binding with the intellect that's done through focusing and concentrating on the idea and the explanation, right? Because like we said before, what is meaning focusing on the Chachma and Bina, focusing on the idea and focusing on the explanation. We can understand with Amit and Marshall an example. So we have two students who are equally smart. And they understand a teaching from their Rabbi very well. But one of them is very into it and he focuses and he concentrates on the teaching itself and its explanation. And he concentrates with all his mental strength and energy on this one teaching without any distractions, right? Until during this time he is completely divorced from all other thoughts and preoccupations. And to the point where, he gets, as they even in the zone, where he forgets about his own existence. Sometimes you can, if you're involved in something like something very,
Compelling.
You can go for hours and you forget to eat, you forget because you're so into it. You don't even notice the passage of time. Time and space disappears, you disappear. The second student is not concentrating as much. He is also is like, well, I'm going to maybe learn this thing, but I also want a pickle. And I also want apple seltzer and something. And at the same time, I'm going to doodle a little bit in my notebook. Labeling. I know, not just nothing, not you personally, anyways.
I don't have a notebook.
Oh, no, that explains a lot, Lee. I'll buy you one. Okay, so this student is not concentrating as much, right? And his thoughts are wandering.
Not concentrating.
Yeah, and his thoughts are wandering around, and therefore he cannot sit there and really dwell on the teaching till after at length afterwards. The first student, he can think about this teaching and he can understand it for a long time and explain it clearly because he has a very strong bond with the idea and with the explanation. And this is the power of Das, to bond with the concept of focusing the mind and concentrating on the idea and its explanation. I have a question, Mitzvah. What makes the one guy want to focus and the other guy decides not to? Is one guy like a bad boy or something, or what's the deal?
He doesn't have a push.
Doesn't have a chush. We can explain that here?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So, it's right here. The source which allows somebody to concentrate on a Chachman Bina. So why does the one student who's concentrating and one is not? Is because the source of this das is what? It's called a chush. This is similar to whoosh, but it's not a whoosh, it's a chush. Which a chush, it means he has a natural affinity or a natural sensitivity, or ability or a talent. This is which he has this. In other words, he's drawn to this thing. He has a natural desire for this thing. It is, the Mittler Rebbe disagrees with you. So, anyways, which we will call right now a natural inclination for a thing that he understands. For example, a person who is naturally kind, right? His soul is a kind soul. He will always have a desire for good and kindness, right? Right? Because he has a rotzing. He has a rotzing to do good, a desire to do good, and the revelation of this desire for doing chesed is higher than the Chachman Bina, right? Because rotzing, desire, is higher than intellect, right? The tainug, the enjoyment, and the desire is higher than intellect. And since this chush, this comes out, it's born out of the rotzing, out of the desire. So therefore, it's able to make them concentrate, to make them focus. So the seichel which he will employ.
I just want to point something out. The chush means the concentration on the rotzah.
Yeah, it's so
not the chush comes out from the rotzah. The chush is the bonding to the rotzah. So it's a kind of a das.
But isn't the source of the chush like the rotzin for the it's like a rotzin
maybe I don't know what's higher.
It's like a rotzin to have a
rotzin. The chush itself that we're talking
about
is the bond to the rotzah. He concentrates on the rotzah. If he says, "Yeah, well, this is a good thing, but I'll do it later," he doesn't concentrate on it. Therefore, he won't pour down a chachman bina how to accomplish.
Why? Because he's not focusing on his desire for it.
Right.
Okay. So before they
and that's called a chush.
This is called
according
chush.
to this,
not whoosh. So before there can be a seichel of why and how to do this thing, there has to be
a desire.
It's the voice be a desire, a rotzah. And that is voice. Yeah, that's the voice.
And then you have to concentrate and bond to that
And
desire.
then, and that desire is higher than the intellect of the how and the why. So the concentration of the mind on this revealed desire for this thing is called the chush. And that he has in the thing at the time, it's called the chush that he has in this thing at that time that he's desiring it. And this chush is higher than the intellect. It's higher than the chachma and bina. And in fact, it acts to produce the intellect and allows one to concentrate on the intellect when it becomes revealed in the kanudla, in the brains.
The concentration of the intellect means the concentration on the chachma and bina that's revealed in the brain. And where is it revealed? It's revealed from the desire. And how is it revealed? When one bonds to the desire, then you can have a chachma and bina how to accomplish the thing that you want. Clear?
Yeah. So because of this, it makes the chachma and bina is focusing on it, and it makes it long lasting.
Like Mendel.
Yeah. So anyway,
I hear somebody sing a beautiful song. So I say, I would love to be able to do that. If I concentrate on that desire, I'll born out a seichel how to accomplish finding a teacher, learning how to read music, and all the things that are necessary to accomplish it. And if I don't concentrate on the desire, if I walk away from it, so I will not have a chachma and bina how to accomplish.
So I don't know if there's actually an English word for it that works the best, but I think perhaps we can even call it maybe like a passion or something like this. It's like a passion for something.
Okay, but
but the problem is it's a passion that's created. It's from the focus becomes this passion.
I just want to say how it works in our case. We want God. Simple as that. And because we're bonded to that desire for God, this chachma and bina is born out for us. We have this chachma and bina that explains to us how to get God. Why? If we weren't bonded for that desire for God, we wouldn't be here at all. We'd say have too much trouble. The act of smoking, the morning with a fiddle ain't showing up. Who needs it? But what? We have a strong desire for the thing we want, and we bond to that desire, and through that is born out the chachma and bina of how to achieve it.
Exactly, because really, otherwise, it's much more fun, label. It's much more fun to sit on the sidewalk like a bottle and sing, but no, because we want to make sure people know Hasidus. This is more important. So this level of the chush, of the focus and the concentration on the ratzin for the thing, is the source of the ability of the das, which, like we said before, that the das bonds to the chachma and bina.
And the source of being able to concentrate on chachma and bina is this.
Is the chush. The chush is the source of the das. For example, we hear somebody playing a piano on a beautiful day, and we decide we want to play the piano. If we bond to this desire to play the piano, then what happens? Like Bitzal was saying, what happens? Then he produces in his intellect logical reasons why it's good and how to do it and how to persevere at it and how to keep his remain passionate for it.
And I think we did the next paragraph already.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did 100%. It was a learning of Hasidus.
So should we have an appeal now from Gezintahait?
Oh, yes, an appeal. Wait, I have an idea. Since I was reading this time, maybe Bitzal gives an appeal this time.
Sure.
Good.
The Rebbe once said that the month of Elul is the time when the king is in the field, when it's very easy to connect to Hashem. When the king is in the palace, it's hard to get into him. There's all kinds of ministers and bureaucracy. You have to have the right kind of clothes. But when the king is in the field, and that's where we are now in the month of Elul, it's possible to approach the king and connect with him. And everybody should take the opportunity now, because Rosh Hashanah is coming up, the king's going to be in the palace. And we have the opportunity now to be one of the king's people. So when it comes Rosh Hashanah, we're going to be able to get straight into the palace. We'll be able to get straight into the king. And not only that, those of us who are smart will go out and will tell other people that we know, other Jewish people, that the king is in the field. We can ask him for whatever we want, and he receives us with a happy face, with a smile. He's so happy to see us. He's been gone for a long time. He got lost in exile. He lost his people, and he's coming back now to the palace, and he stops in the field to bring with us. And we all have the ability now to connect to Hashem because His 13 attributes of mercy are shining. That godly face can be revealed. And that's what we want, whether we know it or not. We want to connect with Hashem. And now's the time we can do it. And the real way to do it is to help somebody else to connect. That's the real way to give Hashem nachas and to give Him pleasure. So take your shot. It's one time a year. It's the month of Elul.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Heavish, we have a meeting.
Let's have a nigga. We have a sign off.
Yeah, lady, give me a G.
G.
Gezintahait, my friend.
Remember, kids, Gezintahait.
It's a wrap, boys. We once again is the button, mark the ending.